Thomas lived alone in a small one-bedroom apartment. Life was quiet, ordinary, until one day an old classmate whom he hadn't seen for years came to visit the city. The friend asked if he could stay for a few days. Thomas hesitated at first, but eventually agreed. The sofa in his living room was big enough for a guest, and he didn't want to seem impolite. He had no idea that this simple act of kindness would soon fill him with deep regret. That first night, Thomas worked late and returned home long past midnight. His classmate was already asleep on the sofa, so Thomas washed up and went to his bedroom. The apartment was silent except for the faint hum of the refrigerator, until a strange rustling noise woke him sometime after 2 a.m. Thomas was a light sleeper, easily disturbed by even the smallest sounds. He opened his eyes and froze. Standing beside his bed was his classmate, motionless, staring straight at him. The man's eyes were wide open, his arms hanging stiffly at his sides. Startled, Thomas shouted and hurled his pillow at him. "What are you doing, standing by my bed?" The classmate didn't reply. Instead, he stepped back, turned round, and walked silently toward the living room. Thomas, shaken and confused, followed. His classmate lay back down on the sofa, rolled over, and began snoring again, as if nothing had happened. Sleepwalking, Thomas thought uneasily. He returned to bed, but couldn't fall asleep for the rest of the night. The next morning, everything seemed perfectly normal. His classmate chatted and laughed as if nothing strange had occurred. Thomas decided not to mention it, convincing himself it had been nothing more than a sleepwalking episode. That night, however, a sense of unease lingered. Before going to bed, Thomas quietly set up a small camera in the corner of the living room, aiming it toward the sofa. If his classmate got up again, he wanted to know what was really going on. In the middle of the night, Thomas was awakened by the same eerie rustling noise. He sat up. His room was empty. He stepped out into the living room, but the sofa was empty too. His classmate was nowhere to be seen. He turned on all the lights and searched the entire apartment, calling the man's name. No response. Even his phone was switched off. Uneasy, Thomas decided to return to his bedroom, and that was when he noticed something. The cabinet beside his bed was slightly open. A thin line of darkness gaped between the doors. A chill crawled down his spine. Slowly, he approached and pulled the doors open. Inside, crouched awkwardly, was his classmate, sitting inside the cabinet, both hands clamped tightly over his mouth, eyes wide and gleaming in the dim light. Thomas stumbled back, his heart pounding. He fled into the bathroom and locked the door. For what felt like hours, he stayed there, trembling, unsure whether his classmate was sleepwalking or acting deliberately. Eventually, he heard footsteps, the sound of the man returning to the sofa, followed by silence. Only then did Thomas dare to leave the bathroom, rush back to his room, and lock the door behind him. He didn't sleep at all that night. The next morning, he told his classmate that it was inconvenient for him to stay any longer. The man agreed, easily smiled faintly, and left without protest. That evening, Thomas remembered the camera he had set up the night before. Curiosity and dread twisted inside him as he replayed the footage. At first, the recording showed his classmate lying motionless on the sofa. Then, around 2:17 a.m., the man sat up abruptly, turned his head toward the bedroom, and smiled a slow, unnatural smile that didn't reach his eyes. Then he stood up, walked out of frame, and disappeared into the hallway leading to Thomas's room. The footage ended there. Thomas stared at the screen, his hands shaking, realizing that what he had seen that night was not a dream, and perhaps not sleepwalking at all.